now tuned in to the Della Fit Podcasts, 360 degrees of holistic fitness and health, all in one podcast.
All information given in this episode is for educational purposes and should not be tried prior to consulting a licensed physician and or certified state or accrediting bodies. We encourage all listeners to research, talk, and make all inquiries to all of the important professionals and governing bodies before acting on any information heard on the Della Fit podcast. Any action taken by any listener is done by and under their own omission and action, whether conscious to the results, positive or not. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Della Fit Podcast, 360 degrees of holistic fitness and health, all in one podcast. Today, I am joined by two phenomenal guests, and we're going to do a little differently than we ever have done it before, because the subject is something that needs to be discussed. It's something that we need to make a regular conversation. And I'm not just acting as your host today. I'm actually in this conversation, and I have a lot of things I want to learn. And I'm hoping that after this show, that you will have learned a lot as well. So I have the privilege of bringing two phenomenal guests. I have with me the author, CEO, and all-around boss. I gotta put some respect on her name.
Okay.
Brydy Lynn. I have Dr. Oriaku Osaku. All right. And first of all, this is going to be a phenomenal show, because we're talking about a phenomenal topic, which is how do we deal with being aware of STIs? How do we deal with the fact of keeping ourselves safe? And if we come in contact with STIs, how do we begin to maintain a normal lifestyle or continue to live with them? So first of all, for everybody out there, this is a conversation that Brydy and I hope I can call you Brydy. I hope you don't. I don't know if you want me to call you CEO style or anything. You know, you're big. Just throw a little bit of levity in there. But this is a conversation that I had the privilege of discussing with Brydy, and I want you to start us off in this conversation and why it was so important to you. Because when you began talking about it, you made me say, okay, this is something that we all need to take seriously. So Brydy, you start and introduce a little bit about yourself and why this is so important to you.
Thank you, Simone. And thank you for having me today. Bad hair day and all. I'm sorry, I know nobody can see me, but so I am author of Through the Storm of Early Trauma, Healing and Overcoming. And I share my story of my childhood growing up. I went through just a significant amount of adversity growing up. And I explained this in my book. And one of the topics that was near and dear to me was something that I dealt with that no one really ever knew about until, of course, they would read my book. I decided to release it because I want to help people who are dealing with the situations of an STD or an STI. And I'm so glad we have Dr. Ori on today with us, because there's so much hearsay about both of these, and a lot of people didn't even know and don't know that there's a difference between the two. And with April being STI, STD Awareness Month, I thought this would be perfect to talk about it. Just quickly with me, I do have carry an STI, HSV2, and I obtained that after being raped, which I discussed in my book, from a childhood trusted friend, and he came back and raped me again with another friend that I knew in the middle of the night. And so dealing with now being raped 3 times and my parents taking me to the doctor and then, to get me checked out, realized that, the doctor just kind of came in, we have good news and then there's bad news. Good news is all of you have STDs, but all of them are curable, but one, and that's the bad news. They kind of had this pamphlet there, kind of just gave it to my parents and explained what it was and everything like that. And then the very next thing, I just remember my dad was so angry, and he was just like, no one's ever going to want you. You're never getting married. You've ruined the rest of your life, kind of like type of congratulations attitude. And then he drove me down to my ex, who at the time was still very much in love with me. I had dumped him after I got raped because I felt like he didn't deserve me, basically, or the other way around. He could have so much better. I felt like damaged goods. And my father forced me to tell him, everything. And of course he was disgusted and didn't understand fully, what was going on and why my dad was doing that to me. And I felt I was mortified. I was angry. And now I have to live with this for the rest of my life. And I just felt doomed. So I think it's important to talk about it, because whether you're a victim of rape, whether you're a victim of molestation, and whatever it is that transfers an STI or STD to you, I feel as though we as a Black community need to talk about it.
Dr. Ori, first of all, I just want to say this, that it takes a lot of strength to do what you do, Brydy. It is not an easy thing to come to grips with any type of trauma. And from what you're talking about, that's an immense amount of trauma that you dealt with. So I applaud you. I applaud you for everything that you are doing. I applaud you for the successes that you have in your life. I applaud you for the fact of you use the negatives that have taken place in your life as a source of strength to do the amazing things that you do. And you do some amazing things. And anybody that don't know that about you, they should check out your social media and what you're doing. Because I'm like, this woman worked hard. I'm like, it's 3 a.m. I don't know how you still up posting. I don't know how you do. I'm like, I'm supposed to be posting. I'm like, I'm hiring people to post. Like, this is ridiculous. Dr. Ori, now you're a physician. You work with young people. All right. Before I ask you this question, just give a little bit of information about yourself, so that for the listening audience that are out there.
Yeah. So, as Sunmoon mentioned, I am Dr. Oriaku Kasosoka. I currently live in Las Vegas, work for the UNLV School of Medicine, and I'm also a adolescent medicine physician by training, by way of pediatrics. And I currently am running a pediatric residency program. So I get to train a lot of people to have these conversations with their patients and to educate them further in order to hopefully in the end decrease STIs as we move forward. But it's super, I'm excited to just be here, and it's awesome to meet Brydy. This is my first time meeting her. So I'm really excited to have this conversation and figure out, how we can continue to educate adolescents, particularly in my case, but also just people in general, about the importance of having these discussions and getting tested.
So I do want to ask this question. All right. This is the first thing that comes in my head is, why in 2021 are we not having these type of conversations? I feel like if we're in the middle, if we can do the amazing things we can do, if we can have autonomous cars being built, why can we not, even though they're not necessarily working, Tesla, if we can start having the conversation about this, why can we not have the conversation about STIs, STDs, and making this a standard conversation where it comes to our physical health?
I first of all, I wouldn't say that we're not having it. I think we don't have it enough. And I think that it's a hard conversation to have, no matter how hard you try or how you want to make it easier, even though it's a conversation you should have, not only with yourself, your friends, your partners, but it's important to know how to have it well, because it can really jeopardize someone in the long run if you don't strategically have that conversation and continue to have that conversation so you can get better at having it. But we as physicians, I think we need to do our best to educate our patients that are walking through the door and continue to have those conversations. How do we tell someone? Who do we have to tell? When do we have to tell? Is it something I have to tell? So I think all of these are questions that are constantly being, thought about and constructed, and you should be having these conversations with your patients. You should be having it as a patient with your doctor to know how do you take the steps to doing it well.
So, as Brydy said prior, what has changed in medicine when it comes to how a doctor starts that conversation? Because when we listen to her story, all right, and the way that the doctor comes in, for me, I'm like, wow, that's not the way I think you should approach a situation with a young teen. All right. What is difference between now and then, and how a doctor or physician approaches this type of situation and how they're being trained? This is kind of an interesting question, because I want to say that there shouldn't be a difference, right? We should have been taught the right way to have the conversation. We should have been taught the right words to use. But I think, especially with Brydy's situation, there should have been more empathy in that whole situation, regardless, of the fact, this is not an easy conversation to have, whether you're a doctor or you're not a doctor, you're a friend, you're a patient, it doesn't matter. This is a hard conversation to have. And in the context at which it occurred for Brydy, it makes it 10 times harder. So I am by nature a very empathetic individual. And so I think these for me are the hardest conversations to have, because I'm already deeply, connected with my patients when I walk in the room and want to have these conversations. So I think it's important. One, you should be talking to the team by themselves. You should be addressing how they feel about it. You should be asking them questions, what they need to know, addressing their concerns, because regardless of how the parents feel or what's happening on that end, what you really care about is what is the teen going to do when they walk out of here? Are they going to be taking care of themselves? Are they going to be feeling like they're worthless? Do they have someone to connect and talk to make sure that they're managing and dealing with these things? These are all pieces you should be approaching when you're having this conversation. It's not just like, here's your diagnosis, this is what I can do for you, and then I'll see you next time. You can't do that. Not with a teenager. You'll ruin their life. That moment changes their life. And so you want to make the best positive impact you can at that moment, because you may not ever get a chance again to do it.
Yeah, Dr. Ori, you're definitely right, because it literally did change that moment for me. So, I do have to, let you guys know the location, which it shouldn't matter, but the location of where I received this testing was in Portland, Oregon. And at the time, especially during, it was 2000, or it just turned the turn of the new millennium. There weren't many Black people, and they didn't really care to have me there. I was in a neighborhood at a hospital there, and I say Portland, but more clearly defined Clackamas, that they really just didn't care. And so when someone's coming around the neighborhood and I see all white people and I see that one Black person, I'm like, hey, we known each other forever. But that's just kind of how it was then. But it didn't make me feel any better. And it wasn't, it didn't make it right. The way that they treated me when I was in the office, which leads me to one thing that we struggle as a Black community, Black healthcare for the Black community and what that looks like. Are there, and do you see it from your end, people who are maybe not getting tested because they say they can't afford it, or maybe there's a lack of education. What do you feel like are some of the things that hold us as a Black community back from being more educated about the topic and getting tested?
I definitely think part of it is feeling connected to the people you're going in to see. One of my, key things in life is always to impact and change the makeup of medicine, physicians in our system. I think that in many places we're serving people of color. The physicians that work in that place should look like and understand and come from that community at the end of the day, because I think that that will reflect and change the perspective that the community has and being able to see a patient, come in to see the doctor or access healthcare. I think it changes it when you're like, I know the doctor I'm walking in to see, she looks like me, she is me, she knows and understands what I'm going through. She's not going to treat me differently. And so I think that will change the face of how we see medicine in general, if we can get to that space. But also, I think it's how we put ourselves out there. Are we telling people that these are the things they should be doing to take care of themselves? And coming from a perspective of safety, not of anger or targeting or trying to come from a negative space. We really need to reframe it and say, this is about your health. This is about taking care of yourself. This is about taking care of each other, truthfully, because it's not just a one person situation. So I think all of these pieces are key in order for us to kind of make that impact in our community.
What's going on, everybody? It's Philly's #1 son. Listen, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's a creation tool that allows you how to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a stunning podcast in one place. So listen, if you want to be like me and have your own podcast, go to anchor.com. That's anchor.com. I have a quick question for Dr. Ori. And my question is, you said about just taking care of each other and our health in general. Now, that's my thing. All right. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm about. Why is it that it seems in the African Caribbean community, or we'll just say in the metropolitan area, like the city, the urban areas, why don't we have the conversations about our health? Why don't we have those type of conversations on a regular basis?
I don't think it's just about us not having it. I think it's knowledge behind it. I think that it's fear behind it. I think that people have had bad experiences that have led us to get to where we are, and we're not having those conversations. I think each of those are playing a role in why we're not kind of taking the next steps to do better, taking the next steps to change the way we see things or do things. It's just because there's some lack of either resources, access, knowledge behind all of that.
I agree. And I'm sorry, Simon, this is like such a topic, and I don't mean to like keep asking questions, but I have just on my heart for those who have been a victim of rape, for those, because you can get an STI by, just on the news last year, there was a young girl who was caught by the teacher. It was on the Zoom class that they were having. And the teacher, I don't know if you guys remember the story, but the teachers told everyone for break, and he came in and forced her to give oral sex. And this had been going on for some time, but it was just caught that day. And I can only imagine that little girl just didn't know what to do, right? And there was this fear of telling. But so thank God he was finally caught, right?
Right.
But what if he had something and now he's passed it on to her? So people who are being molested, who are being raped, what do you say to those people? And when they have to now live with an STD, which was in my case, because now we're talking about my mental health being affected. Now we're talking about me being angry and having to go through life now to, tell a partner that I'm going to have sex with, or want to have sex with, or want to move on in a relationship. Hey, I have, this STI, and it's not as bad as you think when you look at the internet, because, everyone goes to the internet and they freak out. And, you can talk to my doctor, you can talk to your doctor, just get educated on it. But I would love to move forward. And that person's like, mm-hmm. That's what I've been dealing with. And it hurts. Mm-hmm. It really does hurt. I'm trying to hold back tears now, but it hurts.
I think that, your statements and questions are kind of twofold. One, I think early on when they're coming to you, especially in my case as a physician, and telling me this story, it's important that the first thing you let them know that it's not their fault. Because I think that if you don't address that early on, it continues to be, that's the thought process they go through, right? And I think that it's encouraging also that they have to get the support. They have to deal with the trauma that occurred in order to be able to move forward, and to be kind of, yes, this is something you're going to have to talk about, but empowered to do that is super crucial. And although I want to say I have all these amazing skills to be able to give that to someone, I don't. I work very closely with therapists who deal with trauma and manage that piece of it for my patients, so that they can be equipped to be able to move forward and to know that they're worthy. Regardless of their situation, regardless of their circumstance, they are worthy. So someone who isn't willing to move forward despite this diagnosis, or be able to, they're not worth your time. Truthfully, they never loved you or cared about you to begin with, because this one thing shouldn't change their feelings about you. It may complicate things. Don't get me wrong. It may be a conversation that you have to have, a discussion you have to go forward with, but it shouldn't change their feelings, and they should want to take that journey with you. And so if they don't, that's what I say. Yeah. They're not worth it.
Brydy, you were discussing what took place to you at a young age. I'm just trying to think, as a teenager, dealing with that. I mean, it's tough enough, it's tough enough going through everything that we go through at a young age. It's It can be devastating. Yeah. What do we need to do going forward as far as for ourselves? What should we tell ourselves? What would you tell a young person? You know, I know you already said the first thing is it's not their fault, but for individuals that, like, we deal with young people that don't have the support system, you know, where can they go for that type of support system? What type of advice would you say with that?
So first and foremost, I'm a big proponent of therapy. I know that in our community, especially the Black community, we don't always seek out therapists. We don't always go see a therapist, but there are a lot of great therapists out there and a lot of great Black therapists, truthfully, if that is, you know, something that's super crucial for you being able to move forward. And a lot of therapists that deal with trauma. And I think it's key that that point is stressed, is that the importance of going to see a therapist and why, and focusing on someone who can assist and coach you through that trauma. Because if you don't manage or deal with it, it will not get you to where you need to be. And second to that, if you are a religious person, you know, taking that on from that perspective too, if that is the support that you have utilized in your life previously, it's another avenue and way you can get the support that you need. I understand that the makeup of everybody's family isn't that which is supportive. I get that. But we have different avenues we can tackle and utilize. And I teach my patients to go and use them. I teach them to find out what are those, you know, coping strategies, what are those mechanisms, who are those people in their life that they feel supported by, so that we can continue to have that conversation. And sometimes it's me, and they come see me every couple of weeks, and we have a full-on conversation about how to, you know, help manage them through some of the things that they're dealing with. Now, again, I don't presume to take on everybody's task, but I know that I'm willing to do what I have to do to take care of my patients. And so I give them whatever avenue I can provide for them, even if it's like, hey, I need to jump onto something to occupy my time. I give them resources in the community of activities they can be doing to change up what they're thinking about, change their perspective on life. And so I try to target it in a lot of different ways. So that's kind of what I try to do when I'm with each of my patients. But these are some of the avenues that you could tackle and take on.
I think we need more doctors like you in the communities that can care. And I would say that's one thing, it is hard. Like someone was saying, it's hard to talk about it. It's hard to, shout out to my therapist, like over the years that I've gone to. And, I didn't go to them for a long time because I'm like, I'm not crazy. But it's not about that. I needed someone to talk it out and to talk to about it, because obviously I couldn't talk to anyone else. But at the same time, it's still, I'm just, going back to my book and going back to what I continue to say in my interviews is you're not alone, number one. There are millions of people walking around, unfortunately, with an STD. Or STI that are being treated. It's not a death sentence if you get it. That's one thing that I had to move past. And then the other part of that is just this is what powering through and leveling up looks like, right? So it's hard to talk about it. But what I did when I was asking my questions to Dr. Ori and talking to Sun Moon about this topic, it's something that just needs to happen. I just need to get it done because it's going to help somebody. So at the end of the day, if it's between your life, because an STD could turn into that STI, which could turn into AIDS, if we want to go all the way down, because you don't know who you're sleeping with and who they've been with. Who is the guy? His name was Charlie Sheen or something like that. He played on 2.5 Men. He was purposely going around sleeping with women, knowing intentionally that he had AIDS, or I'm sorry, HIV. So it's something that you don't know who you're sleeping with. So if it's between you and that person, have the conversation, get tested. And for anyone else who catches it, and has, because you're a victim of rape or molestation, seek counseling. And for anybody, seek counseling, but definitely for you, seek counseling, because I understand you're going to go through things that I went through, and just dealing with that emotionally. But Dr. Ori, like, the last question that I had for you, are the pictures on the internet real? Like, so I haven't had, and thank God, because they told me I would probably see an outbreak whenever I had my son, right? And I didn't see one, thank God. And I haven't experienced anything. And so I can't speak to what it's like when, a partner were to, say, well, what is it, blah, blah. And I'm like, don't look at the internet. That's all I know. Just go see your doctor. Are those pictures real? I mean, what's up with that?
I mean, some of them are. They are. Sometimes they can be really intense and bad, especially from an HSV type 2 standpoint. They can be really bad, blistering, lots of pain. You're really talking about attacking like the nerves down there. So very uncomfortable, bad burning sensations, ulcers. You can have all of that, but does everybody have that? No. And does everybody have symptoms that are visible? No. But it is a virus that's constantly shedding. You can do things to decrease the amount it's shedding by taking certain meds. And especially if you're having very frequent outbreaks, there are things you can do to mitigate them. But yes, is it still sitting in your system? Yes, it's still there. And that's why it's so, just kind of speaking to what you mentioned before, so important to get tested, but also to protect yourself at the end of the day. I know some of us are in, marriage situations. Some of us are in other types of situations where, we built this trust with our partner, and this is, what we choose to do, is have unprotected sex. That's fine. But you need to make sure you're taking care of yourself. If you're not in that type of situation, you need to be protecting yourself. If you're in a situation where you're not really sure, you're not 100% confident in that individual, or you really just want to protect you, then use a condom.
What was that movie Janet Jackson was in? Oh my God, her husband, something about colors and her.
Oh, yes, I know what you're
talking
about.
Her husband was sleeping around on her, and she ended up catching
For Color Girls.
Yes, for color. Was it For Color Girls Only?
But
yeah, oh my God, you gotta see that movie. And then there was another movie that dealt with it. Tyler Perry did. It was the girl who it was on, like, oh my God, I can't think of it. But she ended up sleeping with the guy who gave her an STD as well. Yep. So, I mean, they are addressing it. It's just not a lot of conversation and not enough. We need to do more.
I feel like there's never going to be enough, right?
No.
When we get down to like no one having STDs, that's when it's enough, right?
Right.
We're not there. The likelihood is there. And, with this pandemic, it's actually increased a little bit. People are out there, having unprotected sex and not thinking about outcomes, and we need to be considering all of that in the situation, so we need to keep preaching the same message, talking about the same things, so people become comfortable in knowing, like, yes, I need to use a condom. Yes, STDs exist. And yes, I need to ensure that I'm not just thinking about myself. I'm thinking about the situation.
Do want to get into this because we're going to try to get into this briefly. So we had some scenarios for everyone out there listening, some scenarios that we played for Dr. Ori. Some of them I was like, are you serious? Really? For real? No guy sounds like that. All right. But I'm gonna attempt to play one. We might have to add the audio later for those of you out there so you can hear it a little bit better. But I'm going to try to attempt to play this one. I've got my own dithers or drithers or whatever that word is about this. We're going to play this. So let's see how this is right here.
Hey, Dr. Lee, the reason why I wanted to come in today, I'm currently sexually active now, and things have been great. However, yesterday when I went to the restroom, there was a bit of a sensation down there. Do you think she burned me?
I see your concern, Chris. Actually, let's not jump to any conclusions. Burning sensation could be anything from a sexually transmitted infection to a urinary tract infection. I think most important is that you did come get checked out, and we will go ahead and get you tested. Most things are very curable, and the things that are not are very treatable. So let's not jump to any conclusions, and let's go ahead and get you tested, and we'll get you taken care of.
Thank you so much. I didn't know men could get UTIs, but...
Absolutely. Not enough people know that because not enough people have the conversation. So maybe you should start that.
That's a really good point. Thank you so much. I'll grab a pamphlet on the outside when I leave. But yeah, let's go ahead and get tested.
Absolutely. Let's get you started.
Okay. I the only thing I have an issue with is, do you think she burnt me? Really, homie? Really? Like we talk to our doctor, like we
You'll be surprised though. They say it. It is not a joke. They say
it, but I'm saying, like, dude did the whole thing. Like, do you think she burnt me? Like,
they do. They
really
come. They say exactly that.
So, all right. So this is something you've heard just in that whole scenario.
Yes.
All right. Hey, listen. The
More than once.
More than once. What?
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, look, Dr. Orton, you say it goes down like that. I'm just saying. I just had a little, the way it broke down, because I'm like, I'm an old school guy. All right. You talk to your doctor a little differently. I will say this. I do. I appreciate everything that you both are doing for the community as a whole, and the work that you're putting in and making this normal. And I will share something, because Brydy, I think that you are the strength that you have given and what you're doing. I feel like, I'll share a moment that I've had. I've been blessed. I haven't had anything as far as I know. I went to doctors, did my test, got a score of 73. I was very happy. I was like, yeah. I was like, so, hey, look, that's a B. That's a passing grade. I was happy about that. I was like, I scored that one. Bingo.
I just want everybody to know that is not how the testing works. You do not get a score. Okay?
Anyway, all I'm saying is that I had a moment, and I was in a new relationship, and I was like, man, everything was going great. I think I was in my early 20s. And I was like, man, this is really going great. And one day I went to the bathroom and something didn't look right. And I was like, what's that song? Hell to no, to the no. But I had tears coming down my eyes. I was like, oh man. So I was like, wait, let me, and I'm thinking to myself, like, man, this is a new situation. I don't want to go into this situation, and I don't want to hurt her. I don't want this to be what I hope it's not. And, it was very difficult. And I'm going to tell you, this one of the most difficult situations, picking up the phone. I picked up that phone 3 times. Then I was like, wait, all right, how'd I do this? Like, hey, babe. No, that's not going to work. You can't. Wait, I put it down, pick it up, put it down, pick it up. And until I finally was just like, called her up. And I said, I got to talk to you about something. And I just want to say, it's normally when you have something that might not be the best to say to somebody, that they're extra happy. I don't know why, but it's always hey, babe, what's going on? Hey, sweetie, I love you. Damn it. Oh, this is going to suck. Right, but managed to express to her what I thought it might be, made a plan, went to the doctors, got tests, came back, all negatives. Brother was happy. You know what I mean? The dance, I was like, they high-fived her when we got home, and everything went well. So,
and you used a condom the next time.
Oh, definitely.
Just making sure. There was clear that all the way up. Okay.
The situation was, I come to find out, is that I have always used protection. Come to find out, I allergic to latex. So I was like, okay. Oh man. But I'm just saying to say that, it's not an easy thing to bring up, whether no matter your gender, it's not easy to bring up. I can only imagine as a teenager what it must be like. So, again, I thank you both for all the work that you're doing, and the strength and the positivity that you bring.
Hey, you with the earbuds in their ear. Have you ever wanted to start your own podcast? When I was trying to get my podcast off the ground, I had a lot of questions. How do I record an episode? How do I get my show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other places people like to listen? How do I make money from my podcast? The answer to every one of these questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now Anchor can match you with great sponsors too, so you can get paid to podcasts. I like to upload my episodes directly to the app and then promote. So if you've always wanted to start a podcast, make money doing it. Go to anchor.fm/start to join me in the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear your podcast.
Brydy, is there anything else you want to share, you want to bring to the conversation? Because this is not, I'm not host today. I'm in the learning area.
No, I mean, one thing I did want to say is that on college campuses, my son will probably be mortified, so I won't say his name. But when I went to go to see what his dorm room would look like and everything, they have like the pre-college days or what have you last summer. I noticed, and so did the other parents, that there were condoms in like a little box, and it said free condoms. And I was like, "Are we serious? Like, not tissue, not candy, like condoms?" And so I was like, at first I was like, "How? Are they encouraging sex?" But then I thought about it, and I was like, "No, this is awesome because for anybody who says, oh, I can't go get a condom and they want to have sex. Well, the condom's right there in the hallway. So you have like no excuses. So I really appreciated that. So if you're in college and your campus dorm has, free condoms, get the free condom, protect yourself. So I just had to do a shout out to college students. That was it.
And definitely, and I don't know if we'll be able to get into it this show, but the thing of using a condom and not using a condom, it feels better. Listen, I'm just going to say it to listeners out there on behalf of guys, just wear the condom.
Oh, Lord.
Wear the condom.
And you won't be feeling good if you get some. So yes, you wear one.
And for any women out there listening, I'm gonna tell you from it, when a guy says that girl's gonna feel so much better, tell him to put the condom on.
And if he tells you he ain't big enough, take that condom and stretch it over your elbow because it goes that far. Okay.
I didn't think that out, but okay.
Want to let you know it's a lie.
I didn't expect that one, but okay.
And I say make sure the condom is new, like it hasn't been sitting in that wallet forever.
Expiration date. Check that expiration date.
Check the expiration date. What's that show? That show I learned for the first time. I think it was called The Game, and they called the girl eggs because she poked the little holes in the condom. There's check the condoms, make sure they don't have holes. Just put it up to the light.
Guys, carry your own that are look, look, y'all know me out there on this show. I keep it real. Don't play with me. Carry your own stuff. Keep it with you. Check it. Don't be no lazy bum. And I'm calling y'all. Don't be no lazy bum. No, for real, because sometimes we need, as guys, we need to hear it this way. Don't be lazy. Don't be lazy like that. If you see, all right, it's time to change this out. Because we tend to let other things rule at times. Like, it'll be all right. Pray it up. No. No.
And in any relationship, it's not just one person's responsibility. It's both people who are in the relationship, their responsibility, whether it's a one night stand to someone you've been with for a long time. It is both people's responsibility to take care of themselves, to manage, their safety at the end of the day. It's not just about you. It's everybody who comes to the table in that party.
Yeah. So, even on the wedding night, if you're going to, go without condoms, make sure that you have that last test. Because, Lord, I just saw a Instagram video, unfortunately, where the mistress is walking up with a baby, pregnant. Oh, really? You got mental issues today? You get married to someone else? I was like, oh my God. And then I saw on Instagram, I have squirrel issues. I think these days
That's why you are posted. That's what it is.
This guy, he was on his stories. He just happened to be putting his business out there, and he was saying how his girl didn't like the fact that she asked him to put on a condom, and he told her it stinks. It stinks when they use condoms. And I was like, and then 2 stories down the road, he comes back, and I guess she had gave in 2 days later, because how they have the stories and the different little, and I just kept watching his storyline, and she gave in and he said the feeling of what it's like to go raw, and I was like, dang it.
No. So
it's just sad. It's sad.
I do have to ask this. So is it, and Dr. Orr, is it one gender over another that prefers to do it without a condom?
It's the men.
What?
I don't know.
Hater.
I want to say it's the male, but honestly, I have a lot of females who come in and say the same.
Say it one more time, please.
Females say the same thing too, and I go to A to Z of all the reasons why this is a bad idea. And, all I can do is continue to educate and hope that whether you male, female, whoever you're having sex with, you're protecting yourself.
Well, and then I also I think it's more so the male, just on my part, my opinion, is because I can't see a female just wanting to go raw and believing in the pull-out method, because she can get pregnant. You trying to have a baby?
Listen.
I'm old school, y'all.
They have it. They have it. It doesn't matter. Regardless of gender or how you identify or who you having sex with, it is important to be safe and to be protecting yourself. And they all have their own ideas of what safe means, but we try to educate them appropriately on what that really means.
Yeah.
I remember when I was in college, they used to say if you drink Mountain Dew, 3 bottles of Mountain Dew, that would keep your boys from working down there. I just saw a lot of dudes drinking Mountain Dew. I'm like, yo, are you serious, homie? Yeah, they say
the myths that are out there. Oh my goodness,
But the most important fact is that millions of people are walking around with an STD or STI, and they're getting medication for it. For me, I'm lucky because I don't have to take that medication. I haven't needed it. I heard lots of stories of people who don't need it as well, but who knows, like Dr. Ori was saying, it's still in my body. And it can come out at any time. I don't know the triggers. I just thank God I haven't been through them. But that I feel like, and we can talk about this on another call, but one of the things that I felt like, and I should have brought this up, is that I feel like when it comes to when you do go getting tested, especially for HSV2, it's not a part of the regular culture sample. You have to ask for it. And if you don't ask for it, they're not going to test for it. And I was just like, is that because FDA or whoever the drug administration, is that because it's a whole money thing? They want to keep people on, why is that? That's crazy to me.
It's just because if you're not symptomatic, there may not be any benefit in, I guess, quote unquote, knowing that piece of it per se. But I think, if you are, having sex and these are concerns that you do have, or you've noticed any kind of like ulcers, these are great reasons. But just because it sits in your system doesn't always mean you're going to have symptoms. And so that's part of, why. And also about frequency, right? Like how common is it in comparison to some of the others, which are a little bit more common or frequent. And so, the CDC puts out like how often or recommends how, when you should be tested and why you should be tested and how frequent you should be tested. And so a lot of our recommendations are based off of that. And these are all solely based off of frequency within our community or within society. And so we, take all those pieces into consideration. It's not that we don't test for HSV type 2 in particular, but it is that in there's certain circumstances where that is a little bit more prevalent. You're definitely going to test for it. Other circumstances where that may not be the first test you choose or you check for. You base it off of what they're presenting with or symptoms or reasons behind testing.
But if people are walking around like me and I'm not showing symptoms and haven't since I was 17, if there's more people like me walking around, probably millions like me, it would seem to me that would be some sort of importance to stress to ask for it at least once a year, if not once every 2 years or something, because you said earlier, like it could potentially still be spread because of shedding.
Yeah. So it can also lay, dormant too. So it just kind of depends. You do, if it is a virus, so it does shed, but it can also be dormant. So if you've never been symptomatic, it's hard to say like, yes, I should definitely 100% test for it. There's about like 12% of the community or in society based off of information that CDC has collected that have HSV type 2. So, if we're looking, it's a lot, of course, that's still millions, right? But it's a lot less than some of the other STDs that show up. So frequency is all dependent on symptoms that people are presenting with or concerns that may be had. So if you're with someone who's ever in their life said, I had an ulcer or I've had something that I wasn't sure what it was, it went away on its own, which is often what happens, even without treatment. So that might be something you're like, I should just get tested for this. And yes, if you came to me and saw me and you were like, hey, I also wanted to just get tested for HSV, I would talk through what that would mean, because what happens if we test for this, you come back and you're like, I'm positive. So now what do I do? And you're freaking out. And in reality, you've never had symptoms. So this is a watch and wait type situation, right? This is a different type of discussion to have. So I think it just varies. I'm not saying we shouldn't get tested, but I'm just saying we have to put perspective on the testing.
So should they say anything? Because I know a lot of people are like, you didn't even have to say anything if you're not, haven't broken out. But that's not true.
I think if you're in a relationship and you're going to go down that path of having sex, 100%, you should have those conversations. Everybody should get tested, in that situation to determine everybody's risk so you can make sure everybody's being safe, right? Because if you just jump in, you plunge in, and then, let's say you had it and you pass it to someone else, how is that going to make you feel? I mean, I would feel good about it.
I would feel horrible.
Exactly. So that's why the conversations are so important. And that's why if it is a concern of yours, you should get tested 100%, and I think that's okay, and of course, there's so many nuances when it comes to the herpes virus specifically and compared to some of the other STDs. But, there's two types, and one of them is you might have oral, ulcers, and that's the type 1. But because of oral sex, could you pass type 1 to someone via oral sex? 100%. So these are all things we have to consider in these situations when we're talking about testing, taking care of yourself, all of these things, treatment, all of these perspectives kind of come into play.
And I'm so glad that you said that, because these are the topics that I'm hearing just in conversation and that I've had to address and deal with. But just the last thing, and I promise because someone's going to kill me. The last thing is chickenpox, which is a form of herpes. We get the MMV or the, what do you call it?
The varicella.
Yeah. And so we when you that is a form of that virus. So chickenpox, and I think it's shingles. So when you have that form, why is that different? I guess different from, I guess, what is it called? Varicella. So why is that different from, like, that treatment different and not affect any other forms of that virus? Did it kind of do like the COVID did? It just developed a whole another strand, and they never found a cure?
Different, and they tend to target different cells, and so how they present themselves is very different. Okay. And of course, like with our vaccine, you rarely see chickenpox unless someone doesn't get the vaccine, or you might see after the vaccine a small blurb of it, but it's not as prevalent as it was prior to having the vaccine out there. But it's different. I'm not an infectious disease doctor, so I don't speak to the makeup of certain things and how they're developed and created. But I mean, to me, it's a blessing to even have a vaccine for a virus, right? Because they can change and they can mutate into something different, right? Which is why you also have different types of viruses, right? And we were able to kind of target this one and create a vaccine for it, similar to what we've done now with COVID and other viruses out there. But nothing's 100% perfect, right? We all recognize that and know that. And who knows? Maybe someday there'll be a vaccine for herpes. I don't know, but the beauty of it is we do have a way to mitigate the symptoms, treat them, and even suppress in some situations. So I think, unfortunately, I can't speak to all the pieces like that because I don't want to say something incorrect and then someone comes for my throat later, so I only speak to things I'm 100% better equipped to talk about. So
I zip my mouth. So no more questions.
I was about to say, no, I appreciate that because they coming for you. They coming for me.
Yeah.
On your show.
And I was just an author. I was just,
Don't be, you know what? Don't be on you an author now. She's like, I was just sitting there. I was using the benefit of the professional.
I was asking all them questions.
That was there. Anyway, I want to thank both of our guests today, the amazing Brydy Lynn, Dr. Y'all feel better about that? Y'all feel better about
on her name.
Oriaku. Yes. Osaku. All right, but I want to thank you all for being here today so that we could discuss this and begin to hopefully spark the discussion and make this a normal conversation where it's not so awkward, where we're not sitting there like, hey, you know what happened today? And making it awkward. We need to have more conversations like this. I've always felt that if we want to change the world, the first place to change it is with health. Everything we deal with is a health situation, mental, spiritual, no matter what, because if you are living, you have to be able to have a full, vibrant life. And the only way you can do that is with good health. With that being said, I do want both of my guests to leave your information so that where individuals can email you, if you have a website, if you have something where somebody can, they might like, I want to ask a question, Brydy, I really appreciate, and you gave me the strength to really, do this and move past based on your experiences and how you shared, or Dr. Osaku, I want to really, ask you this question, or maybe you can point me in the right direction. Leave your information or tell us where people can contact you, can basically get in contact with you so that they can ask these questions or share this information.
You can follow me on Instagram at Brydy Lynn Kelly, or you can find me on BrydyLynnKelly.com. And that's BYRDYNNLYNNKELLEY. And you can reach out to me on my contact page or message me on Instagram, and same handle on Facebook, by the way. And I would be more than happy to point you in the right direction. I have a great team, and so I can point you to those resources, and definitely to Dr. Ori. I don't know the answers to these questions.
Dr. Ori, please share your information.
Yeah, for me, you can find me on Instagram at Dr. Cass MD or Dr. Cass 2008. On Twitter, the same thing, Dr. Cass 2008. And I have my website. It's all new and improved, so definitely come check it out. It's drcassmd.com. And you're definitely welcome to leave me messages on there. And if you are in the Las Vegas area looking for a teen doc, come visit, come hang out with me. On Facebook too, you can look me up as Las Vegas Teen Doc. So come check me out.
Awesome. And I forgot to say, shout out my book. How can I do that? I'm an author. Oh my God.
You ready to shout out your book? Go ahead. All right, shout out your book.
Okay. Please, you can get a copy of my book at Through the Storm of Early Trauma. And I appreciate your support. If when you read it, please leave me a review. I would love that. We have it in paperback, hardback, ebook, and audio.
And please, definitely take the time to read the book. She is a brilliant author. She's really good at what she does, and she has a wonderful, energetic heart. Both of these beautiful, intelligent women do. Take the time, everybody, if you're listening, use these resources. We don't just do this just to do it. This is not something where it's just like, we felt like just doing it. No, we do this because we want people to be able to use the resources to help themselves or help others. So don't be afraid. Don't feel awkward. Go there, find the information, go to Dr. Cass's website, go and read Brydy's book. Check these amazing individuals out.
Yeah. And send me a message. I have a blog. If you want me to write about something, talk about something, send me some information and I will make sure I do that.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the De La Fit podcast. This was indeed a wonderful episode, and we are going to be furthering the conversation. Hopefully, well, actually, by the time you listen to it, because we pre-record these episodes, so the next one we will be talking more about the mental aspects of STIs and STDs and how we can go forth and live with these things that we have to live with in life. Some of us have to live with. So with that being said, have a great day, be happy, be healthy, and always be good to yourself.
You've been listening to the De La Fit podcast. Ta-ta for now.